Friends, before I speak tonight, I want to say that this pulpit and your willingness to listen to my words as a transmitter of tradition is not something that I take lightly. My remarks tonight are going to begin with a topic that is controversial and divisive. It is a debate that has caused communications to be cut off between loved ones and has caused rifts between people of all backgrounds, but I feel that I must take a stand. In the debate of iPhone versus Android, I love my iPhone. You thought I was going to talk about something else. So I really do. I love my iPhone. I love all the things about it. It's so fun. It does great stuff. But there's one thing about it I don't like. The cords. Every time there's a new iPhone, I have to get a new cord. If I lose the one that came with it, I have to buy another new one because the one from a year ago doesn't work. This is part of what is called planned obsolescence. The idea that the useful length of a product is planned so that it stops working after a certain number of uses, or the battery cannot be replaced, or a new update won't work, or a new model makes an old model feel old. Planned obsolescence. If you didn't know that term, it's a great term, right? We could talk tonight about how it's good for the economy, but bad for the environment, but it's Shabbat, so I'd rather talk about Torah and our relationship to it. There's a verse in our Torah that has always fascinated me. In Deuteronomy 13, which we did not read tonight, which Snaid did not read so beautifully. Et kol hadavar asher anochi mitzaveh etchem, oto tishmeru la'asot lo tosef alav v'lo tigra mimenu. All of these matters which I command you here in this Torah, you should be careful to perform. You may not add to it or diminish from it. It's explicit. Our Torah says these are God's commandments and they are to remain forever with no change, no addition, and no diminishment. We can't add a mitzvah and we can't take away a mitzvah. Therefore, you might think that over time, it would diminish itself, become unusable, that it wouldn't still be central to our lives as a Jewish community. Yet we still celebrate it. We still learn from it. And in many ways, we do exactly what it says as we did in ancient days. Which, think about that for a moment. That's honestly like a shock. It's really a surprise that we still hold it so close. Why do we as a Jewish community feel a sense of loyalty to the Torah and return to it year after year? We could say it would make more logical and rational sense not to do so. Let me explain what I mean. I've been thinking about this idea a lot after learning from Dr. Jeremy Tabak. 3 reasons that I'll offer why it could make sense for us to not be in such a committed relationship to our Torah. First of all, it's 2,500 years old. Every year, we read each chapter and verse, we read texts that were not speaking to us directly, but speaking to our ancient ancestors 2,500 years ago. Yes, it includes us, but the main focus, it's really on them. There's archaic language and basic ideas that deal with gender and nature and power and societal structures that often seem biased and outdated. 2, in addition to being written for people from ancient days, much of it is written for people that, well, like us, that don't live in the place that the Torah is commanding laws about. A large percentage of the laws are tied directly to the land of Israel and have really no direct relevance to us here and now in the diaspora. 3, as Dr. Tabak noted, much of what is promised in the Torah, in our covenant with God, has just not come true. The temples in Jerusalem were destroyed. Our people have been scattered and murdered throughout time. And 0.2% of the world's population One could argue that the verse in Deuteronomy that promises that we will be mighty and numerous, not so much. Let's turn for a moment to this week's Torah portion, the end of Leviticus, which we could describe. This whole chapter we could describe in a word that a lot of teenagers use today. It's pretty cringe. The parsha begins with these words, Im bechukotai telechu ve'et mitzvotai tishmaru ve'asitem otam. If you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments, there's going to be reward. There'll be rains in their season, the earth will yield bounty, you'll know security, there'll be peace, you'll be looked upon with favor. And shortly after that, there is a stark turn. V'im lo tishmeu li, if you don't listen, if you ignore these laws, if you disobey and you break the commandments, there will be misery, an abundance of problems, devastation, famine, disease. You'll be conquered. As Rabbi Dr. Devorah Weisberg puts it, abundant blessings for obeying God's commandments and ghastly disasters for those who do not. These verses are so intense that there's actually a tradition for people to leave during the public recitation. I mean, who would want to hear 36 verses of, here's everything worse than you can imagine that I'm going to threaten you with? It brings trouble and discomfort. And it also doesn't exactly coalesce with the world that we live in. Living a pious life leads to material benefit. Living a life of wickedness leads to material punishment. Oh, sorry, you've been paying attention. It just doesn't sit with our rational definitions and modern understandings for us as individuals or in regards to our communal responsibility. In the Plowed commentary, the translation and copy of the Torah in front of you, I found this paragraph. There's no necessary relation between one's merits and one's fortune. A person of the noblest character may be lucky or miserable. It is untrue to say that it always pays to be good, and it is equally untrue to say that it never pays. An honest and dependable person is usually respected and trusted. Kindness to others often evokes a similar response from them. And national righteousness contributes to national stability. But such results are only possibilities. They're not guaranteed. So I ask again, why do we feel such a sense of loyalty to the Torah? And why do we return to it year after year, generation after generation? Well, I have a number of answers. One, we are so stubborn. We've been a stiff-necked people since our earliest days. Perhaps our continuing relationship to the Torah is just hubris, and in spite of everything that has happened to us as a people, we're just unwilling to let go of the anchor to our past. Great. Another answer. I think we're a what-if people. What if God, what if the covenant, what if the possibilities of all that was written in the Torah was real? And what if it all came true? The laws, the mitzvot, the values that we learn that get us out of bed in the morning, as Rabbi Glickman would say, we're a get up and do people. We get up and we say, what if we follow the Torah as a program of action? What if our lives will be better because of it? What if the world will be better because of it? Here's another. Maybe it's just the connection that we have to our ancient ancestors and what we share in common as humans. Happiness around a birth, sadness around a death, the battle between right and wrong. Maybe the Torah, while feeling so distant, is more close and natural to us than we think. Maybe it's just a simply human nature thing that we feel connected to. Another answer. This one from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, who lived 250 years ago. He speaks about that opening verse that I referred to from this week's Parsha. If you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments, you'll be rewarded. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak asks this great question. He notices that it seems repetitive, and he asks, what does "if you follow my laws" add to the notion of faithfully observe my commandments that wasn't already included? And he says to follow is all about deed. It's about what we do. But to observe, he says, refers to the way that we think, our thoughts, and our mental processes. If we do God's commandments, the actual deeds, we're going to bring blessing. But he says also the Torah is insisting here that the ways in which we think and conceive the world become a blessing as well. He's arguing that Torah influences our conscious mental activity. I think what he's saying underneath it is that the Torah, which isn't something we think about often, is the greatest psychological study, the greatest self-help book with the most profound insights into the psyche of a human experience that has ever been written. If he was here today, he would probably say, it's no wonder the Bible's on the New York Times bestseller list. It has a value for our thinking that we don't often talk about. One more answer. Perhaps our timeless relationship with Torah lies in the idea that sometimes our best teachers are the ones who do the things that we find incorrigible. Perhaps what we find in our Torah when we study it pushes our buttons. It's not just that we're stubborn. We don't like something, and then we argue with it. We don't walk away from it. We wrestle with it. And when we confront what we find that is personally or communally offensive or off-putting, we get more clarity on ethical and moral life, what that looks like for us. Because we've wrestled with Torah, more often we know what the right thing to do is. When we argue with Torah from 2,500 years ago, it becomes alive and relevant today. So now I ask, knowing so much of how Torah doesn't always jive with our rational senses today, why do you feel a sense of loyalty to the Torah and keep returning Shabbat after Shabbat, year after year? Here's something that I believe. Somehow, the sustainable design of the Torah had a planned permanence in the words and ideals held within. It was meant to be the opposite of planned obsolescence. Torah can never become obsolete because of us. May we continue to be stubborn and to argue. May we always ask, what if? May we appreciate the rewards that we do get in life. And may Torah always be at the center of our community and our lives. The end of the reading of a book of Torah, we say, Chazak, Chazak, Benid Chazek. May we be strong. May we be strong. May we strengthen one another. Shabbat Shalom.